From the outside looking in, it seems simple. Seize the cash, count it, and turn it in.
The Rip is a 2026 American action thriller film written and directed by Joe Carnahan, who developed the story with Michael McGrail. The film stars Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as police officers in the Miami-Dade Police Department Narcotics Unit. It also stars Steven Yeun, Teyana Taylor, Sasha Cal, Catalina Sandino-Morno, Scott Adkins, and Kyle Chandler. The film is inspired by the true story of Miami-Dade County Sheriff Chris Cassiano. This film tells the story of a group of police officers who, during a raid on a hidden cash operation, find their trust broken down as team members suspect each other of trying to steal a large sum of cash. It was released by Netflix on January 16, 2026, to generally favorable reviews from critics. The production company, Artists Equity, negotiated a first-of-its-kind deal with Netflix that provides the workers involved in the production of the film with a bonus if it performs well on the streaming platform. When Captain Jackie Velez of the Miami-Dade Police Department is murdered, suspicion falls on her specialized unit, the Tactical Narcotics Team, TNT, amid rumors of crooked cops robbing drug houses. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Dane Doomers, receives a tip about an address in Hialeah and leads his fellow detectives, J.D. Bayan, Mike Rowe, Numa Baptiste, and Lolo Salazar, to search the house for illicit money. When asked how much money, Doomers tells each team member a different number. Daisy Molina, the late homeowner's granddaughter, reluctantly lets the team inside. There they discover $20 million in drug cartel cash, hidden in the attic. Doomers, realizing the high risk associated with seizing such a large sum of money, disobeys standard protocol. Refusing to notify higher command, he also confiscates the team's phones, although Rowe secretly uses a burner phone. After an uneasy encounter with local officers, the team arm themselves as they count the money on site, per standard procedure. Daisy explains that she was instructed to offer a share of the money if the stash was discovered. Doomers becomes suspicious after learning she was once a police informant. As mysterious calls to the house threaten the team to leave, Bayan confronts Doomers for lying about the original tip, which he refuses to show him. Fearing the lieutenant is preparing to steal the money, Bayan calls DEA agent Matty Nix, who suggests Doomers may have been involved with Velez's death. Realizing the empty neighborhood is under the cartel's control, Bayan investigates a nearby house alone, and Daisy warns Rowe that she heard Doomers convince Baptiste and Salazar to help rob the stash. The power is cut as the house takes heavy gunfire. Salazar is wounded while Doomers and Rowe chase off the gunmen. Bayan appears with a cartel lookout from the neighboring house, who calls his boss. He explains they did not attack the detectives and the cartel is willing to abandon their money, but warns that Velez may have been killed by a member of her own team. Bayan turns on Doomers. Rowe loses his phone in the scuffle, and the house catches fire as Nix arrives. Leaving Baptiste and Salazar with Daisy, the other detectives accompany Nix and the money bags in the back of an armored vehicle. Doomers reveals that Velez sent him the tip before she was killed, planning to use the house as bait for the crooked heist crew. To force them into action, he led everyone to believe he was stealing the money himself. When the mysterious callers mentioned the money amount Doomers told Rowe, he deduced Rowe was in league with the crew, which includes Nix and the Hialeah officers. Nix and his men made the threatening calls and shot at the house, while Rowe set the fire. Doomers later shared his plan with Bayan, who stole Roe's burner in the scuffle, which Roe uses to confirm Nix's involvement. Nix opens fire, and his driver is killed in the ensuing fight while Roe and Doomers are wounded. Nix admits that he and Roe ambushed Velez, but Bayan had already alerted his FBI agent brother Dell, so the crew is cornered by the authorities. Roe is chased down and arrested by Doomers, while Nix leads Bayan on a car chase but is shot dead. Having swapped the stolen money with phone books hoarded by Dacey's grandmother, the team turns in the real cash. A grateful Dacey receives 20% of the seizure for her cooperation. On the beach, Doomers and Bayan watch the sun rise in Velez's memory. The film was first announced in June 2024, with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck set to star. The film was written and directed by Joe Carnahan, who also developed the story with Michael McGrail. Damon and Affleck also produced the film at Artists Equity. Shortly after the project had been shopped around for a buyer, Netflix purchased the rights to distribute the film. The contract between Artists Equity and Netflix is notable because the streaming service agreed to pay a one-time bonus to the 1,200 people who worked on the film if the movie meets certain performance benchmarks within its first 90 days. This is a departure from Netflix's usual approach of paying a single, upfront fee to talent. The film is inspired by the true story of Miami-Dade County Sheriff Chris Cassiano. In 2016, Cassiano and his narcotics squad's investigation and raid on a Miami Lakes residence uncovered $20 million hidden inside. However, the corrupt cop character in the film is entirely fictional. The character played by Damon is based on Cassiano himself. Damon's character is grieving the death of his 10-year-old son, Jake, from cancer. The film's story was inspired by Cassiano's real-life son, Jake William Cassiano, who died from leukemia in 2021. Upon signing on, Netflix had certain script stipulations with Damon elaborating. A standard way to make an action movie that Ben Affleck and I learned is you usually have 3 set pieces. One in the first act, one in the second, and one in the third, and they kinda ramp up. And the big one with all the explosions, you spend most of your money on that one in the third act, and that's your kinda finale. Now, they're like, can we get a big one in the first 5 minutes? We want people to stay tuned in. And it wouldn't be terrible if you reiterated the plot 3 or 4 times in the dialogue because people are on their phone while they're watching. In October 2024, Teyana Taylor, Sasha Cal, Nestor Carbonell, Catalina Sandino-Morno, and Kyle Chandler joined the cast. In November 2024, Scott Adkins and Lena Esco joined the cast. Principal photography began on October 3, 2024, in Los Angeles, and was expected to wrap on December 11. Additional scenes were also shot in New Jersey in November. Juan Miguel Azpiroz served as the cinematographer. Joe Carnahan, the director of gritty cop flicks like Narc and Cop Shop, is back in his wheelhouse with the effectively entertaining The Rip, the rare Netflix original action film that actually plays like something you'd want to see in theaters. BFFs Matt Damon and Ben Affleck lean into their age a bit more than usual to play world-weary Miami cops faced with the allure of corruption. Carnahan sets up his players, the backdrop of the dangerous world against which this will unfold, and then bounces them off one another in a way that keeps audiences guessing. Through it all, the Oscar winners for Good Will Hunting do strong character work, especially Damon, elevating The Rip even further. This is the kind of staple on basic cable channels like TNT that old men like to rail about not getting made anymore. They'll eat it up and be satisfied by this old-fashioned meal. The Rip opens with a Miami cop named Jackie Lena Esco being murdered by masked thugs. It's clear she got too close to someone, but was it a criminal or one of her fellow cops? Carnahan cuts to interrogations of Jackie's partners on an elite Miami task force, one led by Lieutenant Dane Doomers, a perfectly grizzled Damon. These initial scenes set up Dane as the brains to the brawn of Detective Sergeant J.D. Bayan, a Fulk, the latter the kind of guy more likely to throw hands against the superior questioning if he's dirty, even if it's Scott Adkins. Although, like so much of Carnahan's twisty, clever script, Even these initial scenes are a bit of a fake-out. This is the kind of movie in which you're constantly questioning who's dirty, who's clean, or if everyone is somewhere along the spectrum. Dane gets a tip that there's a stash house for the cartel that's got money waiting to be seized by Miami PD. That's what Dane and his team do, go into illegal operations and rip the illegally gotten gains for the police force. As rumors circulate that corrupt cops have been keeping rips for themselves, Dane and his task force head to a house at the end of a seemingly mundane cul-de-sac. The production design that makes an ordinary circle of houses feel threatening will be underrated. When they arrive and find just a young woman named Daisy, a very good Sasha Cal with no idea why they'd even want to search her grandmother's house, things quickly seem off. But the money-sniffing dog is going crazy. Maybe that's because there's $20 million in the attic, a stash that big. The gang was expecting low six figures like most rips, sends the group into a tizzy. Detectives Mike Rowe, Steven Yeun, Numa Baptiste, Tayana Taylor, and Lolo Salazar, Catalina Sandino Morno debate with Dane and JD about what to do next as Daisy looks on. It's not just the temptation to split the money and head for the hills. It's the fact that whoever stashes that amount of money would do everything they can to protect it, right? The idea that the team has do something, anything, quickly before the owner of the cash comes armed and ready to protect it gives the rip a wonderful tension. It's not just the question of whether they steal the money, but if they'll even have time to make a choice before gunfire rains down on them. And will it be the cartel or the dirty cops who come to claim the deposit? The ticking clock of the rip is effective enough, but Carnahan doesn't rest on that, also having a blast playing with questions of loyalty within that tense dynamic. Could Dane be the one behind the corrupt rips? Did he get Jackie killed? What does DEA agent Matty Nix Kyle Chandler know? Why does Roe have a burner? Did Daisy really not know anything? Can greed and justice intersect? The constant flow of questions and suspicion gives the rip remarkable momentum. It's a long film, but you don't feel it at all for the large majority of that runtime. The final scenes of tying things up could have been cut by about half, even if the very last one is a beautiful grace note. It helps to have a great cast from top to bottom. Carnahan is an underrated director of performance when he wants to be, including one of Ray Liotta's best turns in Narc, and one of Liam Neeson's best in The Gray. No one here lives up to those deeply underrated master classes, but it's a testament to Carnahan's direction that there's not a false note in this talented ensemble. Everyone works, especially Damon, who leans into his age in ways he hasn't much to date, selling how trauma and exhaustion might impact a man tired of always being a hero. The rip goes on a little too long in its final scenes and jettisons a few too many of its supporting characters along the way as the twists are revealed, as clever as they are. However, it's so much better than most streaming original action films that no one will mind. In the end, it actually got me hoping that Carnahan could just become an in-house Netflix original action guy, maybe even teaching a few of the big budget hires how to do this kind of thing well. If we got a movie as airtight as The Rip every January, Netflix would be a better place, although maybe I'm just being greedy. Today, we look at a film that is trying to do something different in the streaming space, trying an experiment to re-add residuals back into a system that has systematically ripped them out of the industry. But while the back-end mechanics of the film are very fascinating, that doesn't mean much if the film lacks any substance. That means it is time to have a look and see if it has some depth to it. So to set the scene, we open with Captain Jackie Velez, Lena Esco of Tactical Narcotics Team, TNT in Miami getting gunned down in a car park. This sends ripples through the force and agitates Lieutenant Dane Doomer's Matt Damon and Detective Sergeant J.D. Bayan Ben Affleck, as internal affairs and the feds are looking at everyone at the TNT. There is money on the line, and where there is money, there is potential for corruption. All the cops in the department are feeling the pinch, but one of their own just got murdered, and no one seems to care. But when the police are tipped off to a massive stash of cash, everyone's loyalties will be tested, because what if IA is right and one of them is dirty? For a film that is targeting the dirty underbelly of society and also being coy about where the dirt is lying, you need to ground your world first. Brutally murdering a captain in your opening minutes is a good way to accomplish that. Add to that a full-time investigation that casts everyone in a poor light, which is the perfect way of putting the mistrust in every direction. You know someone is dirty, but who? And who are they working for? And is it just one group at play? The film lets you sit and wallow in the indecision for a long time, waiting for that first bullet to fly. I loved this opening setup, how the camera lingers in places where you suspect a blood splatter might appear in a moment's time. It lets you get to know the cast, and also suspect each and every one of them before things start hitting the fan. The Rip is the type of film that lives and dies on the casting because you need to care for everyone in the movie, while still not being sure who among them is dirty. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck could almost feel like stunt casting at this point, but it works. You have to believe that they have a lifelong connection for the film to work, and you don't need to fake it with them. There is also a tension there that plays better than other similar casting choices, like Wolf's. A superb supporting cast then surrounds them, all bringing something a little different to the film, which gives it that little bit more depth that it probably wouldn't have had otherwise. I did love the banter and energy between Teyana Taylor and Catalina Sandino Morno, which was desperately needed. However, you have Scott Adkins. Let the man throw down more than once in the film. This is a solidly produced film, with much of the work taking place in a single location, which does help sell the idea that this is all taking place over one night. The Rip is a film that is trying to be both grounded and full of heightened emotions, which is a very narrow vibe to walk, but they make it work. Part of that comes from the way they built and dressed the house they are working in for most of the film. It feels like a real house with a generation of memories and phone books. But then this is all heightened by design choices like having a serious conversation interrupted by a spray of dirt coming from the ceiling. Like each swing of a sledgehammer was taking us closer to conflict. There is not as much action as you would expect in a film like this, but it is all solidly produced, with the run and gun through the streets being the highlight for me. The narrative of the film might be the most challenging part to parse as you go through, because it is a bit of a mess, intentionally. From the opening of the film, you are placed in a situation where everyone is potentially distrustful, and there are likely unreliable narrators everywhere. There is no anchor to get a foundation, even after the bullets start flying. I will say that I think you will either love or hate the pacing of this film. I am in the first camp, but I could easily see people falling in the latter. So much of the film is marinating in the what if. What if we took the money for ourselves? What if one of us is a snitch? What if you can't trust your brother? It is these questions and more that the film takes its time answering. You will either be carried along for the ride or left in the dust. The Rip, a new Netflix original action movie directed by Joe Carnahan, relies heavily on the shoulders of real-life BFFs Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Clearly, writers Joe Carnahan and Michael McGrail knew that the lead actor's friendship would be the reason why most people would watch this. The film opens with a Miami cop named Jackie being murdered. Her murder forces her crew of Dane, Damon, JD, Affleck, Mike Steven Yeun, Numa, Teyana Taylor, and Lolo, Catalina Sandino Morno, to look into who killed her because they suspect foul play. The group discovers millions of dollars during their investigation of a stash house for drug money, leading to distrust within the group and outside it. For an action movie, this movie has no action. I was watching and waiting for something to happen. An hour or so into the movie, it still felt like an introduction. The pieces of the mystery were still falling into place, and the money at the stash house was just starting to be counted. The writers saved their big action set piece for the end, like most movies, but it didn't deliver in scale or entertainment. The set piece consisted of one vehicle chase and a separate chase on foot. It seemed like they spent their whole budget on getting actors to sign on instead of creating something memorable. Netflix has created this formula, which Damon has recently talked about in an interview, where dialogue reiterates the plot multiple times because Netflix suspects that people are on their phones while watching. Also, according to Damon, Netflix adds a bigger-than-normal action piece towards the beginning to keep the audience from clicking off the movie. This process creates movies that have no identity because it is all about this streamlined process to keep people watching instead of making something actually entertaining or new. Even with the big names attached, they add very little to the movie. They make it slightly better, keeping it afloat instead of elevating it. All the characters are severely underdeveloped with little to no complexity. Taylor, who may win an Oscar this year, was barely used. Neither was Kyle Chandler, who is having a small resurgence in his career. The mystery part was very convoluted yet very simplistic at the same time. It is convoluted in the fact that it never tells you anything to guess who was involved besides the one obvious person. It is very simplistic because it treats the big reveal of the obvious person as something new, despite showing him being suspicious the whole time. After the reveal, while tying up the story, the film tries to invent an emotional element despite it not being present the whole time. The only emotion the effort elicited was my irritation, because it seemed to drag on. So what did I like? The ticking clock feeling created some tension, especially when it came to finally starting to move the money. Despite the dark and bland look of the whole movie, I liked the scene where everything was revealed in the truck. The lighting went in and out, hiding the people inside in the darkness sporadically to create some tension. Shadows were actually used in ways to create some interesting visuals. Besides that, I didn't enjoy The Rip that much. It's not the worst film in the world. Some may enjoy this movie more than I did, but I found the story and characters to be very lacking. I wouldn't say they do their best, but Affleck and Damon are far from the problem. I would recommend going into this with the expectations of a middle-of-the-road Netflix original, and that's all you need to know to get a good idea of the movie. The Rip is a piece of slick, propulsive entertainment that is highly aware of the conventions of crime thrillers and takes the needed efforts to offer a few surprises. Even if it makes the claim to be loosely based on a true story, the iconography of drug busts gone awry. Dirty cops and dangerous stashes of cash is nothing new for fans of grungy B-movies. The Rip isn't so self-aggrandizing that it makes bold statements about the infrastructure of the genre, but it reveals itself to be a much smarter feat of setups and payoffs than the straightforward premise may have seemed. January has become a month where studios tend to dump crime flicks that play like mediocre versions of Training Day or Miami Vice. But The Rip has a flair for the theatrical, twisty sensibilities of 90s neo-noir films like The Usual Suspects or L.A. Confidential. The Rip is set in the aftermath of the murder of Miami police officer Jackie Velez, Lena Esco, which prompts an investigation into the team she regularly operated with. Lieutenant Dane Doomer's Matt Damon, Detective Sergeant J.D. Bayan Ben Affleck, Mike Rowe Steven Yeun, Lolo Salazar Catalina Sandino Morno, and Detective Numa Baptiste. Teyana Taylor may be under investigation by J.D.'s brother, Scott Adkins, and FBI agent, but they score one of the biggest busts of their career when they raid a stash hour loaded with millions in cash. Considering that both Dane and J.D. have expressed their frustrations with the economic stability of their line of work, the notion of taking the profits for themselves is a seductive one. However, they aren't the only players interested in the secret trove. The DEA agent Matty Nix, Kyle Chandler, has his own team making raids, and the home's owner, Daisy, Sasha Cal, may have a connection to deadly drug traffickers. Joe Carnahan is unquestionably one of the most distinct crime cinema aficionados of the 21st century, as both his defenders and critics could admit that his films could never be mistaken for anyone else's. While the last 2 decades have seen Carnahan working on high stakes, action-heavy feats of spectacle like Cop Shop and The A-Team, The Rip is the most grounded and streamlined entry in his filmography since his breakthrough film, Narc. Carnahan has an ear for how cops talk, how investigations are staged, and the types of details that could only be picked up by those who have spent years on the force. If The Rip has anything to say about the current state of law enforcement, it's that it's all a matter of facts and figures. The initial cash seizure is the resort of financially pressed cops in need of a win, and the site itself could be claimed as a contested victory for the DEA, the FBI, or the local police department. The film has a more complicated mystery than the question of who is dirty, as it would be a better question to ask which lane of authority the characters are most loyal to. It makes for an engaging story because the central group of characters must speak to each other in coded terms, making implications that none of them would be brave enough to speak aloud. Carnahan finds a way to make the dialogue both realistic and memorable. While no one has a Tarantino-esque monologue, there's enough personality to go around, giving each actor a chance to shine. Damon and Affleck, who also produced the film under their production company Artists Equity, have been such frequent screen partners that it's impressive they are able to continue drawing the best out of each other nearly 3 decades after their breakthrough with Good Will Hunting. The Rip is savvy enough to realize that it's more fun if the two are cast in roles that may have seemed more naturally suited for one another. Dane is the gruff, colorful team leader who speaks with a defiant sense of authority, whereas JD is burdened by family issues and is holding back personal issues that he's not yet comfortable talking about. The evolution of the characters' relationship makes for an effective bait and switch because Damon and Affleck bring an unpredictability to their roles, making it easy to question what both of their motivations might be. Although simply seeing Damon and Affleck bounce off one another is the primary selling point for The Rip, the overqualified supporting cast is able to bring individuality to roles that may not have been as fleshed out on the page. Yeun is a standout because he's playing a character conscious of the fact that he's been underestimated, a quality that the actor may share when sharing the screen with stars like Damon and Affleck. Adkins, one of the most talented stunt artists in the world, proves that he's improved as an actor and gets a few terrific back-and-forth scenes with Affleck. Taylor and Morna may feel a bit underwritten, but both actresses are charismatic enough that the sections focused on their characters are never a bore. However, the film's scene stealer may be Chandler. While he's best known as the sensitive, thoughtful star of prestige dramas like Friday Night Lights and Bloodline, Chandler is more than willing to chew the scenery with a delightfully hammy performance as a scowling FBI agent. The Rip might tip its hand a bit too early based on how many open threads are introduced within its opening 15 minutes, but a majority of the film is set within a singular location, which only escalates the stakes. Carnahan is a skilled enough visual artist that he's able to maximize the possibilities for set pieces within a remote neighborhood and mysterious housing project, as the profanity-laden disputes are often as exciting as the fistcuffs. When the film does transition into a more traditional action thriller, Carnahan flexes his filmmaking muscles with chase scenes that would put a majority of Netflix's more expensive genre flicks to shame. The Rip isn't as much a throwback as it is a fulfilling entry in a canon of easily digestible serpentine crime cinema films, which would see a few new additions each year if the industry were in a healthier place. Although it's a bit unfortunate that it feels like a novelty, The Rip is one of the better examples of what this subgenre can be.